Welcome friends to the 2015 to 2020 Acura TLX Buyer's Guide video. Personally, I really enjoyed driving it, and I've tried every iteration of it from the 4-cylinder with the pause rear wheel steering system to the V6 and the super handling all-wheel drive, and even the A-Spec version of the TLX. I've tried all of them, and I genuinely think it's a great daily driver. It's obviously never going to be appreciated by the mainstream or by most people because it's not a hardcore M vehicle or an AMG or anything like that. But for street driving, it offers comfort, refinement, nimble and agile handling no matter which model you go with. And both the 4 and the 6-cylinder engines, they're very potent. In fact, I even recommend just sticking with the 4-cylinder. It's satisfactory, I love the way it revs, and the 8-speed dual clutch that it's mated to, it's brilliant. It's got snappy shifts, and the paddle shifters are really satisfying to use with that DCT. I also like the pause system that the 4-cylinders come with because it's a front-wheel drive vehicle. They also give it that rear wheel steering when you go with the 4-cylinder, and it makes it so easy to drive. The handling, it's so sharp while still giving you a compliant and soft ride, and the interior, it's very quiet. And I'm sure one of the reasons you might be interested in purchasing this car is because you've seen the used car prices, and it is really attractively priced, and it's a sharp looking vehicle. You pull up in this, nobody's going to say that you're in a near 10-year-old vehicle. No, it still looks great today. It's got those eye-catching dual headlights, and if you don't like the beak grille, well, in 2018 and up, they fixed that. So for the price, you're getting a vehicle that exudes a high-quality premium look and feel. But the car obviously isn't perfect, and I'm not just talking about the issues that you can run into. I'm talking about the interior space. It looks pretty plain, and the dual screen infotainment, I won't lie, it's not the best setup in the world. It's pretty cumbersome, and the materials that they use in the interior space, it's not exactly the best in the world, but whatever. For this generation, at least the seats are soft and plush, so you can do some miles in this vehicle and not feel fatigued. So I guess that's what matters at the end of the day. Anyway, throughout the video, I will continue to share more of my thoughts, but for right now, let's get into the various model year changes. Okay, to do some used car research, I really love to use Edmunds. They do an excellent job in compiling the various model year changes. So that's the website that I am on right now. 2015, that's obviously the first year of the TLX. This car is replacing the previous TL and the TSX. They've effectively combined both of those cars into this model known as the TLX. For the 2016 model year, there are no new changes. In 2017, the vehicle again is unchanged. However, keep in mind, sometimes these manufacturers, they will make subtle tweaks and changes to their product and simply not disclose it. I've noticed that multiple times with just about every manufacturer, so I just thought I would let you know about that. And in 2018, that's when the vehicle got its refresh and they stopped using that beak grille, which I personally didn't mind. I thought that was a clean aesthetic and design that they had with the silver beak grille, but apparently many people hated that. And in 2018, they fixed it. And I have to say, it is certainly a sharp refresh. I really like the looks. But aside from that, you have more advanced driver safety features, which are now standard across the board. And they revised the infotainment for quicker response. Also, both of the transmissions, the 9-speed automatic ZF and the 8-speed dual clutch, they've been retuned. And 2018 is the year when they introduced that A-Spec trim level. I really like this model. If you love Honda Acura vehicles, but you also love to drive, the A-Spec is the one that you want to look into because somehow they've tuned the 9-speed ZF to be really sharp and responsive, and it feels satisfactory to use with that NA V6 engine. And also the NA V6, the induction noise sounds louder in the cabin, similar to what Lexus does with some of their F-Sport products. And the A-Spec TLX, it does sound incredible. It's really satisfying to rev out that NA V6, and the car drives amazing as well. especially when it's paired to that super handling all-wheel drive system. So 2018 and up with the A-Spec, certainly a product to look out for. And in 2019, they took that same A-Spec appearance package and they made that available on the 4-cylinder models. So now it's not just bespoke to the V6, at least in appearance. And we have new 19-inch wheel designs as well in 2019. 2020, that's the final model year of the TLX, and there are no new changes. And before we continue, I just want to take a moment to speak more in depth on the A-Spec models for this generation, because I know there's going to be some questions and some confusion regarding this model. And in 2019, we saw that Edmunds said that the A-Spec appearance package would be available for the 4-cylinder models. I don't know too much about the 4 cylinders. I've never driven a 4-cylinder with the A-Spec model, and sadly Acura has taken down the 2019 TLX press release for whatever reason, so I can't investigate any further. But regardless, I don't really care about a 4-cylinder A-Spec. It's the 3.5 liter V6 A-Spec that's truly special. That's the one I drove, and this is no mere appearance package when it comes to the V6 A-Spec. Sure, that's one part of it. You do get the more aggressive exterior with the larger 19-inch wheels. That's cool. But with that, you also get interior enhancements like more seat bolstering in the front. You also get red LED ambient lighting, a wireless charging pad, ventilated front seats, and you get a lot of those great features mainly because the A-Spec is building upon the TLX V6 with the technology package. So you naturally just get those tech features when you go with the A-Spec. But regarding the drive, we get sport-tuned suspension and a revised electric power steering rack and enhanced springs and rear stabilizer bar for the super handling all-wheel drive A-Specs. But for the front-wheel drive A-Specs, you're still going to get the PAWS, the precision all-wheel steering, which I mentioned before I'm a huge fan of. And I mentioned that the A-Spec sounds like it has a induction tube inside the interior space, similar to the Lexus F-Sport models. Well, audibly, that's what it sounds like to you when you're driving the vehicle and you're in the driver's seat. However, Acura claims that it's a system called Active Sound Control, or ASC. It's a technology that they developed to improve the engine sound by making the sound pressure level more linear as the engine revs increase. And this ASC is integrated into the IDS, or the Integrated Dynamic System, which is their various modes that you can play with. So the IDS, when you put it into Sport or Sport Plus, the TLX's interior engine sound takes on a more aggressive note, according to Acura. Now, even the regular V6 and 4-cylinder models have this ASC system to enhance the engine sound quality. However, this ASC system is enhanced further on the A-Spec models. So it increases the engine noise in the cabin by as much as 4 decibels at engine speeds over 4,000 RPM. That's the official take from Acura, and that's their explanation as to why the A-Spec models sound more aggressive, and the reason why I describe that noise as like induction noises being fed into the cabin space. That's what it sounds like to me, very similar to what Lexus does, although they use a physical induction tube in the Lexus products. Honda, Acura, they're doing this in a more electronic fashion. However, the results are brilliant, and I'm a huge fan. And also the A-Spec models, they do drive better as well because of the handling improvements that they've made. So with the V6s, the A-Spec is not some mere appearance package. It might be on the 4-cylinder, but not on the V6. So if you love to drive an A-Spec TLX, definitely a vehicle you should consider purchasing. All right, now let's go through some basic specs. All right, once again, I like to use Edmunds to look up used car specs, because Edmunds does an excellent job of compiling the original OEM specs of just about every vehicle. And not just that, they also have the original MSRP pricing for that particular model year, along with how much the options costed for that model year. So that in and of itself can make for some interesting research, and you can then see just how inflated the current used car market really is. Anyway, my job is not to go through every little detail and spec. I just want to share with you the resource so you can look this stuff up for yourself. But it's interesting to note, in 2015, when the vehicle first got unveiled, starting price was $31,445. In 2020, the starting price was about 33 grand. The 4-cylinder models, which I'm a huge fan of, and really the model I recommend to most people, is brilliant. I mean, that 4-cylinder actually sounds decent for what it is, and it's satisfactory to ring out. I love the 8-speed dual clutch and how responsive it is, especially with the paddle shifters. It gets phenomenal fuel economy. It's rated to get 24 in the city, 35 on the highway. However, Acura does recommend using premium fuel with these engines, along with the V6 as well. How many Acura owners do you know that's actually putting premium fuel in their vehicles? I don't know. I feel like most people, they just put a regular into these cars thinking it's some basic Honda product. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The 4-cylinders, they produce 206 horsepower and 182 pounds-feet of torque. The V6 makes 290 horsepower and 267 pounds-feet of torque. Fuel economy drops a little bit, especially with that super handling all-wheel drive. Goes down to 21 city, 31 on the highway. Honestly, that's still not bad for a all-wheel drive V6. And no, the A-Specs don't really make any more power. It just sounds a little bit better due to Acura's tuning and their electronics. But I did notice the 9-speed ZF shifting a little bit better and a little bit sharper as an A-Spec. That's not something that Acura disclosed. They didn't really say that they retuned and retweaked the automatic, but it feels a lot better and sharper. Car is 190 inches long total. There's plenty of headroom and legroom both in the front and in the second row. You could fold down the rear seats. The trunk is a decent size at 13.2 cubic feet. In 2015, a super handling V6 weighs 3,748 pounds, which is again, not bad at all. A base model 4-cylinder will drop that weight by about 300 pounds. In 2020 though, the fuel economy of the 4-cylinders and also the V6s, they drop by 1 or 2 mpg. I'm not sure exactly why, but that's just something to note. These cars did utilize a McPherson strut front suspension and a multi-link in the rear. As we all know, in 2021, when they redesigned the TLX, they started to utilize the double wishbone front suspension, which is obviously a big improvement. However, even with the strut suspension, this TLX drove and handled just fine. So that's not an issue, but what can potentially be an issue is the fact that both of these engines, the V6 and the 4-cylinder, they were direct injected, so you can expect to run into some carbon buildup with these vehicles. Just an extra maintenance item that you might want to keep in the back of your mind. When these vehicles start to hit 60 or 80,000 miles or above, you will have to clean out some of that carbon buildup. Anyway, that's enough of that. I just wanted to share with you Edmunds as an excellent used car resource. Let's finally talk about the various issues that you can face with this generation of the TLX. As always, my most favorite resource to research issues with any car is going to be NHTSA.gov. On this government website, it shows you the various complaints that a car has, and that's when owners like you and me write in and talk about the various issues that you have experienced with the car. And for this example, I'm utilizing the 2015 front-wheel drive TLX. We have 284 complaints. We also have the recall section. We have 5 recalls here. That's also important to talk about. We have investigations, which there's 1 current open investigation regarding the airbag. There's a drop down where you can read more into this if you're interested. And at the end, we have the manufacturer communications, also known as TSBs or technical service bulletins. This is where the manufacturer themselves find and report issues with their own vehicle, and potentially they have a solution to said issue as well. So that's important to keep in mind, and we have 423 of these TSBs. A lot of this is going to be repetitive or some frivolous things. However, with the TLX, we definitely do have some issues reported on this car, and keep in mind, you're always going to have those owners that have had their vehicle for 700,000 miles and have never had a single issue at all. For the first time, I am actually sort of one of those people. We had a 2016 Acura TLX in our family that we bought certified pre-owned, and we had it up until 120,000 miles approximately, and we did have a few issues, mainly with the pause system, P-AWS, the rear roll steering function, because we had pretty much a base model 4-cylinder front wheel drive, so obviously that car came with the pause, and we noticed some squeaking noises, if you will, coming from the pause system, but the car was totally drivable. It was functioning just fine, but every time you would go in one of those traffic circles, you would hear those kind of clunking and squeaking noises, and the dealership did eventually take care of it. They actually replaced all of the struts in the rear, and that didn't fix the issue. They replaced a few other parts, but again, that didn't fix it. They eventually just had to tighten down all of the rear wheel steering components and connections, and somehow that did fix the problem. But yeah, we had a couple of other issues as well, and I did document that in a separate video, so you can check that out. But for the most part, we didn't really have anything crazy going on with the vehicle. Just basic maintenance, and we did put premium fuel into the vehicle. That is one thing we did. And we didn't even have any carbon buildup. But I guess towards the end, there was some type of little HVAC issue that occurred. When you come to NHTSA, other owners, they weren't quite as lucky. They've had a lot more, let's just call it more severe issues, where engines were literally grenading on people. One owner, he was just driving down the road and the vehicle started to slow down, and there was smoke coming up out of the hood. Then there were some loud noises and knocking sounds, and finally there was a loud bang and the engine just gave out, and that was at 99,000 miles. And there's a lot of people that have had some engine issues where engines are overheating, and the big one is with the transmissions, both the 8-speed dual clutch and also with the 9-speed ZF. One individual with the 9-speed ZF, they mentioned that their vehicle would do a hard downshift into first gear when coming to a stop, then the vehicle would lurch forward. The Acura dealership replaced the transmission fluid and they did a general software update. However, the issue continued to persist for that person. A lot of people mentioned that when they were driving down the road, the vehicle would just shift into neutral. That happened to a lot of people, and a transmission failure message would pop up on the dash. For others, their dash would just light up like a Christmas tree. That's something that would happen to some Acura owners. And again, I'm not here to go through every little issue that people have had, but it is important to note that, yeah, in general, Honda Acura, they make some good products, but they're certainly not perfect. I noticed that the Acura Hondas, they tend to have more issues than the Toyota Lexus vehicles, for sure. So I like the way Acuras drive and how they look, but they're definitely not perfect. Regarding the suspension, people have heard various clunks and squeaks coming from the front suspension. Others have had problems with the pause or the rear wheel steering system. Some people had more aggressive issues like shaking at highway speeds and other vibrations, and it was far more dangerous of a situation for them. One individual, they went through and they replaced the tires, the brakes, and even the rims, and that didn't even fix the issue. And that's unfortunate. That person spent probably close to $2,000 replacing all of those things and still had issues with their vehicle. That's an unfortunate situation to be in when you spend that type of money and you still don't fix the issue. Others have had problems with the paint, where near the rear windshield area, the paint would start to peel or chip away and rust would start to form on the body of the car. Rust in general is an issue with vehicles as they get older, something to inspect, but this is also being caused because of the poor paint quality on these cars. These are all things to keep in mind, and NHTSA, it's a very valuable resource because these are real life issues that people have ran into, and it's important to note that these things can be a possibility if you decide to purchase one of these cars. I should also mention the recall section. Recently there was a big recall back in November of 2023 where you can experience engine damage with the V6 models due to the connecting rod bearings wearing out. And this isn't just with the TLX. A lot of the V6 powered Honda Acura products before 2020 also had this recall, like the MDX, the Honda Pilot, the Honda Ridgeline, the Honda Odyssey. And due to this connecting rod bearing wear, engines can potentially wear and seize, and you would just need a whole new engine. So fortunately, that is a recall. The dealership will take care of that for you for free. You also have a reduced fuel pump performance, which can cause the vehicle to stall. Again, because this is a recall, the Acura dealership, they will take care of that fuel pump for you. Other recalls, the transmissions may unexpectedly shift into neutral. We talked about that before. Fortunately, that is a recall and they have to take care of it. Some of the automatics, they wouldn't shift into park, and one of the certification labels was incorrectly marked, I guess. But that's not the only resource. There are several more that I want to share with you, which I will cover in this next segment. Okay, similar to NHTSA, I also like to use carcomplaints.com. They essentially take the same information from NHTSA and they just display this information to you in a more digestible format, if you will. And I also like their bar graph that they have going on here. It shows you which model year is essentially the worst. And obviously, the first model year is always going to be the worst. In this case, that's the 2015. And for sure, that is a model you want to avoid at all cost. In fact, there's another website called Copilot Search where they tell you which years of the TLX to avoid. And they tell you to avoid the 2015, the 2016, and the 2018. That definitely makes sense. Even the 2016 model, even though we didn't have too many crazy issues with it, I would still recommend most people to skip it. 2018, that was the first model year of the refresh. Probably a good idea to avoid that as well. And instead, you're better off going with the 2017, the 2019, and the 2020. But yeah, back to carcomplaints.com. They show you some more issues. Again, pretty much the same thing as NHTSA, where you can also see various issues and TSBs. Something else to keep in mind, the cars that came with the sunroof, there's a potential that it can literally explode. That's not just with the TLX, just about any vehicle that's used can run into that issue where the sunroof literally explodes. But aside from the sunroof, I'm sure you noticed throughout the video, I mentioned how I would tell most potential buyers to avoid the V6 models, and that's primarily because they came with a technology called VCM, or Variable Cylinder Management. This is where the V6 cuts down to 3 cylinders when you're on the highway or something, or whenever the computer sees fit, so you can save some fuel. However, most vehicles that implement a form of cylinder deactivation, like the V6 TLXs, over time they develop engine issues, misfires, high oil consumption, and many other costly problems. So the best thing to do is to simply just avoid the V6 and go with the 4-cylinder. However, the higher up you go in mileage, the more you can run into excessive oil consumption issues. But that's pretty much every modern car. Almost every vehicle does suffer from oil consumption issues when you go past like 80,000-90,000 miles. But if you're adamant about getting a V6 powered TLX, there was a gentleman on the TLX forum where he installed something called a VC muzzler, and he did this to bypass the VCM on his vehicle, or the cylinder deactivation technology on his car. So this tune that he put on the vehicle was able to turn off the cylinder deactivation. He has not had a single issue with this car after installing the VC muzzler, and when he goes to the dealership, he does not try to remove it. He just goes in with that tune on his car. But usually, just so you know, a tune of any kind will typically void your warranties, so you can do more research on your own and You can decide for yourself if you want to install some type of tune to get rid of the cylinder deactivation technology. But I hope these tips helped you out, but let's go ahead and let's continue in the video. But I like how on Car Complaints they also show you the crash test rating for that time. Back in 2015, the TLX was a IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus. That is very impressive. However, today the TLX is, probably going to fail all of the latest tests as they've gotten very strict over the years. But whatever, this is still a decently safe car. And when you come to the TSB section, you use Control F on your computer and you can search through the various TSBs. So I thought that was pretty cool, especially since there's so many to go through. So car complaints, various websites like Copilot search, you can find that just by Googling Acura TLX Problems, and various articles like Copilot will pop up. That's a great resource. And also you can use the forums where the owners like to write in and share their experiences. That is a valuable resource. But I suppose the main takeaway here should be these are nice cars, but you can certainly and potentially run into some issues. And to cover yourself, it would be nice if you bought one with a warranty, like a certified pre-owned model. I think that would be a smart move. And in this next segment, we're going to see, is it worth buying one of these cars used with the current high prices, high interest rates? So let's go through and let's see what the current pricing is like. And also, a lot of people ask me in the comment section, hey bro, is this a good deal for this car? Well, you no longer need to ask me that, because in this next segment, I'm going to show you if you are getting a good deal or not. Okay, my most favorite website to research used car prices is cargurus.com. I like to use this website because you can sort out the accident vehicles, the lemon history, the salvage titles. You can sort out all of that pretty easily. The reason why you want to do that is because you have no idea how some of these body shops put these vehicles back together. It will simply never be back to that OEM spec. So I would rather just avoid those cars. And honestly, when you start sorting out all those vehicles and the cars that don't have pictures, you're only left with about 800 TLXs from 2015 to 2020 across the country. And the cheapest of which is going to range between about 10 grand, and on the most expensive side, you can expect to pay, $32,000 to $35,000 for one of those A-Spec models that I was mentioning before. Obviously, the under $15,000 TLXs with 160, 170, 180,000 miles. Yeah, it's not super wise to purchase one of those vehicles. I wouldn't do it. And obviously, as I mentioned, I would certainly avoid the first two model years, the 15s and the 16s. I would at least go with the 17s. Again, the price, it's just going to immediately jump up to about $15,000. Once again, I wouldn't chance it with the higher mileage variants. We just saw how there can be potential for serious engine and transmission issues, both of the most expensive components on the car, and that's not including the various actuators and the other electronics associated with a modern car. But you can sort out the higher mileage vehicles. Most of these cars can be had for around the $20,000 range. For the clean ones with under 40,000 miles, you can also come to the side and select what trim level you want, and if you want the front wheel drive or the all-wheel drive. Those are all things that you can manipulate on the side. As I mentioned before, 2017 and up, 4-cylinder, front wheel drive, the base model, that's what I recommend. And I also mentioned certified pre-owned. That's really the one to go with if you can find one. There's only 29 CPO TLXs around the country as of right now, January 2024, but it's not really 29 because some of these cars, they're at some random Kia dealership. That's something you have to be very careful about. Occasionally you will have these random Chevy or Dodge dealerships or Kia dealerships advertising vehicles as certified pre-owned when the only vehicles that can be CPO come from an Acura dealership, okay? So just be careful of that. But most of the CPO vehicles, they're going to be going for around $25,000. For this generation, it's very difficult to find these CPO models, since there's only a little over 20 around the entire country as of the making of this video. But, these are attractively priced cars. These Acuras, they tend to be significantly cheaper than the equivalent Lexus car. You can usually get a newer model year Acura with less mileage compared to a Lexus. So for that reason, a lot of people, they are gravitated towards these cars. These are well priced in the market, and finding a CPO model is definitely going to be in your best interest because you will be getting better interest rates on the finance. Acura is advertising about 2.9% for 36 months, or 4.9% for up to 48 months, and 5.9% for up to 60 months. So as you can see, you get more favorable interest rates when you go with a CPO model. So even though you pay a little bit more for these cars, it might be worth it due to the better interest rates and also the fact that these cars come with a warranty, and a proper warranty at that. It's backed by the manufacturer, and since Acura is a quote-unquote luxury dealership, they will actually take care of you and treat you like a real human being, which I really like. And they're saying that you're gonna get a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Yeah, that's not really the case. If you buy a 2020 TLX with 20,000 miles on it, okay, a new car is gonna come with a 3-year warranty. They're gonna subtract that from the 7-year and the 100,000 miles. So if you buy a 2020 like that, you're gonna be essentially getting 4 years, 80,000 miles of warranty coverage, which is still good. You'll also get 2 years of Acura roadside assistance along with 1 free maintenance coverage. So those are all some great benefits right there. I do like the Acura CPO program. It is one of the better ones in the industry. The dealerships are pretty good to work with, and they literally do cover almost everything with these warranties. Obviously the drivetrain is covered, so this, in my opinion, is the best way to purchase these vehicles if you're adamant about having a used car in today's market. And if you can, do that 36-month financing and get it paid off as quickly as possible. The other thing is, the older the vehicle in this market, some banks, they might not even finance, those 2015s and those 2016 model year TLXs. That's entirely possible. If you can pay cash, that's great, but with the CPO, you have low interest rates that you can take advantage of, especially for the shorter terms. That's assuming you have perfect credit, of course. If you're not buying CPO, obviously you can still buy warranties at other dealerships, but you really have to read the fine print. You have to make sure it's a prorated warranty, meaning if you decide to cancel prematurely, you can get a portion of that warranty money back. CarMax is also a decent place to buy used cars from. They have decent warranty options, something to keep in mind. Or if you want to be a hero, you want to buy this car without one, and you want to get one of the higher mileage versions, at least make sure that you have a high quality mechanic nearby where you live, or you yourself are a mechanic and you have that Harbor Freight crane ready to go in your garage. I will give Honda Acura vehicles this. These cars are really easy to work on. I mean, heck, even I can work on these vehicles, and that's really saying something. I'm not the most mechanically savvy person, but even I can literally take this entire car apart. So that's a good thing. And if you're going that route, be very careful about buying parts from eBay. Not all of those quote-unquote OEM parts that you find on eBay, they're not all real. A lot of them are fake. That's something to keep in mind. If you're buying parts, I do like to use Rock Auto. That's a good website. And also just going to your local Acura dealership, they can also sell you parts. They're more than happy to do that. And that way you know you're getting genuine OEM parts if that's what you are looking for. And if you're interested in a new Acura TLX, I did a separate video talking about a 2024 TLX and the current pricing and how I am partnered with AutoCompanion, one of the largest brokers in the United States. He's pretty much offering every new Acura at 9 or 10% off of MSRP. He also has a free leasing calculator, and I talk about all of that stuff in the 2024 TLX video, which I will have linked in the description box below. So if you want to research a new TLX, some of the deals you can get, and contemplate even leasing a new TLX compared to financing or just buying a used one, you can do that. Watch that video after you're done watching this one, and you can compare and contrast used car ownership with new car ownership. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's conclude this video. Alright, obviously I am a huge fan of the TLX. I think it's a pretty misunderstood car. Most of these Japanese vehicles are. The mainstream usually just brushes these vehicles off and they just worship the Euro stuff. But in the real world, these TLXs, they drive great, they look great. I'm just not a huge fan of the technology with the interior space, but it is what it is. The car performs just fine, and if you love to drive, the A-Spec models with the super handling all-wheel drive and that naturally aspirated V6, it is absolutely brilliant. Or for most people, you can just go with that 4-cylinder base model with the rear wheel steering. That's also a great combination with that 8-speed dual clutch. No issues there, but as we just saw, I shared with you a lot of resources and tips when it comes to used car research. I hope you really enjoyed and appreciated that. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, because this is the stuff that most people don't bother to share with you. Real quick, I'll just tell you my opinions with the TLX compared to the Lexus ES, another vehicle most people are considering. Keep in mind, the ES, it's going to definitely cost more in the used car market, but that's another good certified pre-owned option. Lexus vehicles, they do tend to be a little bit more reliable, I guess, compared to these Acuras. And the Lexus ES has a more substantial feel rolling down the road. It has no real sporting intentions. It's not really that fun to push that vehicle. But if you're looking for a more luxury car experience, the ES is going to have a better interior space and a more refined, substantial quality feel as it rolls down the road. So yes, the ES does cost more, but the price is kind of sort of justified. It is technically a better vehicle, although the TLX is a little bit more fun to wring out and to drive harder. The same research tips apply. You can use it for any vehicle, the Lexus, a BMW, a whatever, it doesn't matter. You can use this to answer your burning questions like, is this vehicle reliable, or how much I should be paying for a car? Again, go to Car Gurus for that. You can see how much cars are going for with the various miles. It'll even tell you if a vehicle is overpriced or if it's a great deal. It's not a perfect math or science that Car Gurus is using, but whatever, it's a start and it can give you a good ballpark on what you can expect to pay for a vehicle, especially when you do a nationwide search. And obviously I shared with you a lot of websites that you can use to check the reliability of a car. The final resource is going to be the comment section of this video. I hope owners see this video and they comment below their ownership experiences. Again, you're going to have a lot of people who've had no issues with these vehicles throughout their ownership life. But let's not act as if that's the rule and not the exception. You can certainly experience some of the issues I talked about as well. So just keep that in mind, prepare accordingly. But thank you so much for your time. Take care and goodbye.